Hello everybody, and welcome to Sports Source, your number one source of sports, and today we're talking about my NHL Bold Predictions for the 2019-2020 NHL season. Now, the reason I do this video every single year is because the NHL is so unpredictable. If you would have told me some of the stuff that happened last season, the season before it happened, then I would have thought you were crazy. So that's why I'm doing this, because the NHL is so fun, unpredictable, anything could happen, and these bold predictions are going to vary. I'm going to have 3 different categories. I have moderately bold, so they have a pretty good chance of happening, but they're still bold enough to make it on this list. I have just bold, so they're just flat out bold predictions. Like they could happen, they could not. They're kind of 50-50. Then I have the very bold predictions, the big shots in the dark, the ones that could pay off big if I get them right. And yeah, so these aren't supposed to be taken seriously. These are just gonna be fun predictions, so you can drop your predictions down in the comment section below too. Now I have tallied up how many of these I get right every year, and I am 16 for 35, or as well as 46% on predictions every single year. I've done this for the past 2 years, so I'm hoping that percentage can go up. So before we do that, smash that like button and subscribe for more NHL news and discussions. Without further ado, let's begin the video. Now, for my first prediction, I have the Detroit Red Wings getting the first overall pick and drafting Alexis Lafreniere. Now, I'm pretty sure he's going to go first overall. He's a great, talented player. He got the exceptional status a couple of years ago. He's just a phenomenal player. He's probably going to be a big star in the league when he makes the jump over. And it isn't too unreasonable for Detroit to get the first overall pick and draft Alexis Lafreniere for a couple of reasons. The first one is that Detroit isn't a very good team. They didn't really make any moves to make themselves better, and they're probably going to be at the bottom of the league again. So that's not very out of the question. But predicting who's going to get the first overall pick a year before it happens, if I get this right, that'd be pretty cool. But you know, it's pretty reasonable. If you would tell me that Alexis Lafreniere would go first overall to the Red Wings, I wouldn't really think that that's too bold. But, you know, I think he would be a good fit, you know, and I think that he would just be a great player for their franchise if they were to draft him, like I predict. The next prediction I have in the moderately bold category is the Pittsburgh Penguins missing the playoffs. Now, I actually predicted this last year, and it looked like it was going to be true for a little while, but they barely snuck in there, and they got swept in the first round. So, you know, I count that as missing the playoffs. My prediction was right. Just kidding. But I feel like this year I have a very strong chance of getting it right, that the Penguins miss the playoffs, even though every year it seems like they pull away and they find a way to make the playoffs. But this year, I think is a little bit different. Now, the team got worse. Older guys may regress, like Letang, Malkin. You know, maybe Crosby will regress, but, you know, he's only 31, I'm pretty sure, at the time of this video. And it's moderately bold because for a bold predictions video, it's pretty tame and reasonable. You know, if you have told me, if in a year from now you told me the Pittsburgh Penguins missed the playoffs, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's half an actual prediction, and it's bold because, you know, the Penguins have made the playoffs for how many years, but I think that this is the year where it kind of all ends. And Pittsburgh Penguins missing the playoffs, that's everyone's go-to bold prediction, is the top dog, one of the top dogs for many years being taken down. So, you know, this is pretty reasonable, but also just bold enough to make this list. Now, this next prediction is bolder than the other ones, and that's 15 players score 100 plus points. Now, the league has so much offensive talent. You've got so much offensive talent in the league, so much young guys. You know, speed and just offensive skill with the puck has increased through many years. And also, 15 players got 90 plus points last year, and I think that the goals for is going to keep going up, and I could realistically see 15 players scoring 100 plus points. It's pretty bold to say 15 players are going to score 100 plus points, but it could still happen. You got guys like Kucherov, McDavid, you know, just McKinnon, you know, all these top dogs that can score 100 plus points, and the game is becoming faster than ever, and I could see 15 players pulling away with plus 100 points. The league, obviously, more goals for equals more points for players' teams, for their top players, and I think that this is a pretty reasonable prediction. And the last prediction in my moderately bold section is that the first-timers dominate the awards. And what I mean by that is every award in the NHL awards, in the 2019-2020 NHL awards, I predict that all of them will be by first-timers. So, you know, you got the Vezina. A first-timer Vezina will win. A first-timer Bill Masterton. First-timer Hart. You know, all these guys. I think that the first-timers are just going to dominate. All these people are going to win their respective awards for the very first time because the league is getting younger and younger. These young stars are really starting to prove themselves. They're really starting to put a name for themselves in the league, and I can realistically see first-timers dominating the awards. They kind of did this year in a way, but you still see some familiar faces, but I think next year is just going to be a big wave of just brand new players taking over the NHL awards. The first prediction I have in the bold category is the Winnipeg Jets missing the playoffs. Now, I am a huge Jets fan. The Jets are my favorite team, but honestly, I can realistically see this happening. They're in a really tough division. You got guys like Nashville, Chicago, you got Dallas, all these, Colorado. You got all these great teams up there, St. Louis, and I just don't think the Winnipeg Jets are strong enough. They haven't signed Connor and Laine as I'm making this video. That's one thing. They're going to be signed. It's just a matter of when. But they lost a lot of people in free agency. They traded away Trouba, and he's signed for, I think, $8 million for 7 years, which is just crazy for him. And you also got Myers, who went to Vancouver. You got Sherrod, who went to Montreal. That defensive core is going to be filled by a bunch of young guys who I think can step up. But if Morrissey or Bufflin, their top two defensemen, get injured, there's really no one else that I think could step up into that role. Offensively, you lost Kevin Hayes. Their offense is still going to be really good, but Ken Hellebuck hold it down. He did have that really good year 2 years ago. Then last year, he kind of had an off year, so I'm hoping he can bounce back. But I can honestly see them missing the playoffs. It's bold because they made the playoffs, and everyone thought they were going to be a dynasty by now. But I could realistically see it happening, which pains me to say because the Jets are my favorite team. I don't hope it happens. Well, I kind of do, so that this prediction becomes right, but I want to see my team fly in the playoffs once again. My next prediction, lots of people are predicting this, and that Jack Hughes struggles. We've seen Jack Hughes. He's been the first overall pick. We've seen what he did at the tournament. I don't remember the tournament. And Capo Caco did really good, and you got Jack Hughes. But I just don't know if he's going to play that good. You got lots of guys ahead of him already on offense. You got Hughes, you got Hall, you got Palmieri, all those guys ahead of him. And I just think that it's not that he's too small for the league, but as a rookie, I just don't know if he's going to play up to expectation. I could see him maybe getting injured or going through a big slump. I still think he's going to be an amazing player, don't get me wrong, but I think he's going to struggle in his rookie season, trying to find his way into the league, trying to find his way, find a name for himself on this Devils roster. I think he's going to struggle. I don't think he's going to win the Calder, and I don't think that the Devil fans and the Devils should be worried if Jack Hughes does struggle in his rookie year, because this kid is going to be a beast one day. My next prediction is that the St. Louis Blues missed the playoffs. Now, they just won the Stanley Cup. I know they won the Stanley Cup. I was rooting for them since the first round, even when they were going up against my Winnipeg Jets, but I just can't see them. Actually, no. This is a bold prediction video. This isn't my actual predictions. My bold prediction is that the Blues missed the playoffs because they won the Cup last year. They might be a little bit more tired, and they did have a rough start to last year, and I just don't think the magic is there anymore. Last year they were the underdog. They had a magical season, but I feel like the magic has diminished, and I think that they're going to be playing more like they did at the start of the season. Not to that bad extent, but again, the division is tough, and the magic is gone, like I said. I'm hoping that they could keep it alive, but I could realistically see this team missing the playoffs, which is a shame because I loved watching this team in the playoffs, and I'm going to love watching this team next season, even if they do miss the playoffs, like I do predict. My next one, it's bold, and I almost put it on the very bold list, but I put it here, and that's that the Toronto Maple Leafs struggle, which I had them doing last year, and they did for a long period of time, but I have Mike Babcock being fired. Now, he's been praised as an amazing coach when he was in Detroit, Toronto, when they first signed him. I think that he's still one of the best coaches in the league, but I feel like if Toronto struggles early on, I could see him being fired just because of the match he plays on this team. There has been some questionable, coaching mistakes, or you could also say things that he's done that have been questionable as a coach. But, if the team and the management loses their faith in him, I think that maybe even Kyle Dubas could be gone, like Babcock could be fired, and they could just get new management. If they do struggle, I think that this team is going to do really good. Again, they're in a really, really tough division, the Atlantic Division, but I can see Mike Babcock being fired if things go the other way for the Toronto Maple Leafs. My next prediction is that a defenseman under the age of 25 wins the Norris Trophy. Now, obviously, we know that these top defensemen are dominating the game and the Vezina Trophy. You know, you got guys like Hedman, Drew Doughty, you got Erik Karlsson, and you got Giordano. But I feel like a guy under 25, this kind of ties into my prediction about first-timers dominating the awards. I think a defenseman under the age of 25 wins this award because, you know, again, the game is getting younger, and I could just see a lot of young defensemen winning it. Morgan Rielly's 25. Charlie McAvoy, I predicted to have a good year. You know, he could break out. You got just lots of young defensemen in the league that could take this mantle and that could prove themselves as a great defenseman. The defensive end is in really good hands with guys like Heiskanen and Dahlin for the future. I don't think those guys are ready to take the Norris step quite yet, but I can see a defenseman under the age of 25 winning this award this year. And my last prediction for the bold section is that the Washington Capitals missed the playoffs. This is kind of like what I predicted with Pittsburgh, but I think that this is more bold because people have been predicting Pittsburgh to miss the playoffs for a couple years now, and they haven't. But Washington, I haven't really seen anyone predict them missing the playoffs. But, you know, with Washington, Ovi's getting older. I mean, I don't really think that's a big factor on them missing the playoffs because it's Ovechkin. He's a beast. But, you know, I think it'll take a toll on them with, you know, the lack of depth. And the other reason I have for this prediction, it's not because the Capitals are a bad team whatsoever. I think that they'll struggle and they'll just have trouble finding their footing once they struggle. That's my prediction. You could list your opinions in the comments. But another reason is that the Metropolitan Division is so wide open. There isn't a team, I think, that can prove themselves. There's no clear-cut number one team in that division. You got guys like Carolina who just made it to the conference finals. You got the Islanders who were really good last year. You got the Rangers and Devils who had amazing off seasons. And then you have the top dogs from previous years that have been dominating that division for a decade. You've got the Penguins and the Capitals, who I predict is going to fall off this year. I just think that the youth in the NHL is just going to take over even more than it already has. And I think that Capitals might fall out of that playoff spot. Now, the first prediction for the very bold section is that the Columbus Blue Jackets make the playoffs. They had a really rough offseason. If you're a Blue Jackets fan, you lost Panarin, you lost Bobrovsky, you also lost Duchesne. You know, it was a very, very rough time. They did get Gustav Nyquist, but I don't really know if that's enough. But I think it is enough because, like I said, the Metro Division is wide open. And we've seen teams like Islanders last year, when they lose a top player, their other guys step up, and I think that can happen. Pierre-Luc Dubois I could see being a point per game. Gustav Nyquist, I think, is going to revitalize his career with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Their defensive core is still top-notch with Werenski, Jones, Murray, all those guys there. You got Elvis, I can't say his last name, who's coming over. I think he could do pretty good. You got Korpisalo, who I think could do pretty good. You also got that Trexier guy, their rookie, who I think could be a Calder candidate. You still got some talent on this team. This team did still sweep they still swept the Tampa Bay Lightning. They made it to the second round. They did lose lots of their top dogs, but I think that will just be an opportunity for their younger guys, less experienced guys, to step up for this team. My next very bold prediction is that McDavid scores 130 points and leads the Oilers to the playoffs. Now, I can realistically see McDavid scoring 130 points. He's a very talented player. Kucherov almost got 130 last year. I think McDavid is better than Kucherov, and I think that McDavid has that talent. The Oilers had a weird offseason. If you want to see a video on just the offseason in general, then you can click a link in the description where I listed my winners and losers of the offseason. And yeah, they're one of the losers of the offseason, but they did trade Lucic for James Neal, which wasn't a bad trade whatsoever. But the thing is, I can see McDavid scoring 130 points. That's not the problem. The problem is leading the Oilers to the playoffs. I don't think that he'll lead them to the playoffs. I think he will drag this sorry Oilers team to the playoffs. I hate their management and everything they've done. Again, another plug. If you want to see a video on me talking about the Oilers franchise and what they did wrong, if you want to see a video on that, then comment that down below. But yeah, this team has not set up McDavid very well at all, but I can see him dragging the Oilers to the playoffs. Their division, the Pacific Division, it's not as wide open as the Metro, but it's not as tough as a division as the Central and Atlantic, so I can see them making the playoffs and him dragging them in. They still have Draisaitl, who's pretty good. They've got Nuge, who's pretty good. I could see it happening, but will it? We'll have to see next season. This next one is the Tampa Bay Lightning struggle in the regular season and one of their top players get traded. Now, even though the Tampa Bay Lightning have not been a great playoff team, at least they've been a regular season team. But what I predict is that they won't even be a good regular season team. They did lose some pieces in free agency, not huge pieces, but they did lose JT Miller and Antoine Strahlman, who were good pieces to the team, and one of the big reasons why they did win as many games as they did. But I just think that the team's drive and motivation is going to be mostly gone because, they've been disappointed year after year and they're just tired of it. Maybe they will turn that into determination. There's one of two ways. They could turn this disappointing playoffs into determination, or they could just beat themselves up over it and just not be determined at all. And what my bold prediction is that they do just that. They beat themselves up. They lose a lot of games early on. Again, they're, in my opinion, the toughest division in the league. And, I just think that one of their top guys maybe request a trade if everything goes down like I say they will. They have lots of top guys like Hedman, McDonough, Stamkos, Braden Point, who they haven't signed yet, Nikita Kucherov, and I just predict that one of them will be traded for a shakeup and that they might just tear down this Tampa Bay Lightning core altogether if they disappoint in the regular season. My next prediction is that the New York Rangers play amazing and make the conference finals. This is a very bold prediction. Some people might not say it's too bold because the Rangers are in a weaker division, and also because the Rangers improved a lot in the offseason. They got Panarin, they got Trouba, they got Kaapo Kakko. They're still a really good team, but the reason this is very bold is because this team, you have to remember, even though they might play good, they are still a very, very young team. You got lots of rookies and guys who haven't even hit their prime yet on this team, but I think that this could happen because the Metro is wide open and because they have the speed, they have the skill, I think, to make it happen. They got Lundqvist in the back end, who is the opposite of youthful. But, I think that he could hold it together with his experience, be a very good leader. If he doesn't perform like he did last year, if he can have a bounce back year, hopefully he doesn't start to decline. And if he doesn't, I can see him and the rest of the team leading themselves to the conference finals. Now, this last prediction is the biggest, the boldest prediction of all. And last year, I did this prediction. It's the Stanley Cup final prediction. If you look back on last year's video, I actually predicted the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins meeting in the Stanley Cup final, which is just crazy to me. But now I feel like there's a lot of added pressure on me because if I don't guess it, it'll be a fluke. I don't want it to be a fluke. I want to predict the Stanley Cup, the teams who play in the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. And do I think I can do it? I think I can, because I have my list of the two teams, I think that can make it. The first one is the Dallas Stars against the Florida Panthers. That is my Stanley Cup prediction. Write it down. I could have just jinxed them. This could be very wrong, but I have more confidence than last year because I predicted it last year, even though I probably shouldn't have this much confidence because it was a big fluke. But they had a really good offseason. They have good management and coaching. They have the playoff formula that I follow and that I used for St. Louis and Boston last year. If you want a video on what I think the playoff formula is, the teams that make it far in the playoffs and what formula they all have, and a pattern that I've seen, then let me know. But yeah, Dallas, Florida, they had great off seasons. I think that they can make the Stanley Cup final. There was other teams I had in there like Vegas, San Jose, Tampa Bay, Boston, but those weren't bold enough. I'm taking the two biggest underdogs I could think of, the two teams that improve themselves the most, and I'm predicting that they both make it to the Stanley Cup final against each other. And even if I get one of them right, that's still pretty good. But getting them both right, I did the math, and it's like a 1 in 1,800 chance. If I get twice in a row, you all have to subscribe, but you guys still all have to subscribe. But anyway, that's all for me in this video. What are your predictions, your bold predictions? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also subscribe to join Sports Source Nation. That's all for me now. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.